Are you a man looking for an intensive program to help you overcome sexually addictive behaviors? Gateway to Freedom is your answer. Gateway to Freedom is a 3-day workshop for men seeking to overcome any destructive sexual habits. Whether married, single, or divorced, Gateway to Freedom will help men regain hope for a new life of purity and real contentment. The workshop is conducted by experts in the field of sexual addiction recovery with decades of combined experience. Read testimonials of workshop alumni at gatewaymen.com. Get all the info and register online at gatewaymen.com or call 1-800-49-PURITY.
Hi, my name is Jonathan, and I'm the founder of the Gateway to Freedom Workshop. I want to personally invite you to be part of our next workshop coming up June 24th through the 26th in Texas. So call us today at 210-822-8201 or visit gatewaymen.com.
Welcome to Pure Sex Radio, training men, educating women. Are you ready to get real and start living each day in purity? This dynamic program is designed to educate, encourage, and equip listeners with the tools necessary for living a life of sexual purity. Pure Sex Radio brings you the best in mobile talk radio. Listen to real-life struggles, learn how to overcome lust, pornography, and sex addiction, and get serious about purity. Your hosts for Pure Sex Radio are Jonathan Doherty and Stephen Cervantes. Jonathan is the director of Be Broken Ministries and founder of the Gateway to Freedom Workshop for Men. Stephen is the founder of the Hope Counseling Center. Visit us online at puresexradio.com. And now, please welcome Jonathan and Stephen on Pure Sex Radio.
Good day, radio listeners. Welcome to this week's edition of the Pure Sex Radio broadcast. We're glad to have you here with us. My name is Jonathan. I'm here with Stephen. Stephen, how are you today?
I am smiling with delight today.
Excellent. Well, folks, before we get started, I just want to remind you, as we do every now and then, that we are a listener-supported broadcast. And what that means is that what you're hearing right now is due to the generosity of those who decide to come alongside and partner with us financially. That's the way we were able to produce these programs and get them distributed out through the various channels that we have, as far as both traditional radio stations as well as all around the world through our various podcast distributors. So if you would like to learn about the various ways that you can come alongside and partner with us in this ministry, simply go to puresexradio.com and click on the donate button. Well, Stephen, I'm excited about this week's program because we're going to be looking at some statements and just all kinds of comments that we find get floated around in what we might call the addiction community or the addiction recovery community. So why don't you take it from here and let our listeners know where we're going to be diving in this
week.
Right,
so everybody's heard of AA and 12 steps and support groups. And what's helpful about a group is that it's community, it's learning, and I don't know if you'd agree, but I think we learn faster in a group or in a class or with others. And so some people go, I'm just going to do this by myself. Well, that's the slow, hard journey, and mostly you get messed up alone.
Yeah, it never succeeds in the way that people would like to expect success to look like.
And so in community, we're better, we get smarter, we share ideas, it's helpful. So we always advocate, find a group, find a support group. I mean, even the spiritual equivalent is don't forsake meeting together, have fellowship one another, get together once a week on Sunday, remind yourself of the mission. So support groups kind of parallel or mimic spiritual groups, church. And in those groups, you hear things said. And it's just interesting. I've tried to capture some of these things that people have said. And so I want to make a comment, and then I want you, Jonathan, to tell me what you think, what comes to mind. And so one guy came in and said to me, I often have to remind myself the disease is stronger than I am. Now, you may or may not believe addiction is a disease. Okay, that's another discussion for another day. But let's just assume we're going to call it a disease, and you're going to go, okay, whatever this big ugly thing that's grown and become overwhelming, we're using disease for this conversation.
And I think for the sake of putting that in context, these are comments that we hear. So
right,
we're not
exactly.
here necessarily to pick apart the
right or wrong. So the disease I have is stronger than I am. How does that make any sense?
Well, because it's how it actually manifests in your life. I mean, if you think about it, when a person finally comes to the point of admitting they are addicted, how can they not admit that this thing is stronger than I am? It's been proven over and over and over in their life by the very state of where they are in their life.
It is proven to win. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Over my will, my want, my wish. Yeah.
So this isn't actually, I mean, to some it might seem like, wait a second, no, we're supposed to be stronger than this. We're supposed to be, and that's fine if you think that, but I would even sort of parallel this, and if you put it into sort of the spiritual context, you could say the sin is stronger than I am. And that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't, in myself, if I go toe-to-toe with sin, guess who wins? Not me.
So I was going to say, how is this helpful? Because that's the way you're framing this. This disease I have is stronger than I am. How come that's helpful to think that or say that, or for one addict to say to another, the disease is stronger than you are? How's that a helpful thing?
Well, because I think there's the delusion that comes when you're in isolation and you're alone that says, no, I can beat this. I'm strong enough. And by the way, isn't that the message we hear in the culture? You're strong. You're strong enough. You can handle anything. And I think there's a dose of reality that's necessary in a statement like this that says, hey, man, you need to embrace some humility. You need to recognize your limitations. You need to understand that you're not as strong as you think you are. And I think that's actually helpful because it breaks down that false sense of power, that false sense of strength that we can pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and conquer this thing.
So the next guy came up to me and said, I told my sponsor, I'm having new feelings, and sometimes I'm angry, and sometimes I'm mad, and sometimes I'm lonely and sad. And his sponsor said, hey, just remind yourself you're a sex addict, and that's what it feels like. And so let's think about this statement a minute. If you've developed a sexual addiction, how good are you at identifying feelings and knowing feelings and being surprised at time and being overwhelmed at time and being not sure at time and even feeling new things? As you get healthier, his sponsor said, my sponsor told me this and it helped me. Hey, I'm a sex addict. And that's how being a sex addict feels. How does that make any sense?
Yeah, and I know we're not trying to pick apart these statements, but this one just, it's tough for me because it's an identity statement and I don't like it.
Okay.
Because, I started my own journey with the classical view like this, which is I am a sex addict. And then I feel like I was moved out of that to be able to say something more accurate, I believe, in terms of what was happening, which is I am addicted to sex. And it changes from an identity statement to a behavioral statement. And so,
okay, that's good.
But here's the thing. In terms of what this guy said.
Let me say it another way.
Yeah.
So tell me if this gets underneath that radar of the first one. I have a disease, and that's how it feels. This is how it feels.
And that's what I was going to say is, so that was just my simple little sidebar commentary on the identity statement. But again, in just addressing how what this statement is, what to me the emphasis ultimately, and that's why I put the little sidebar context there, because I actually think the emphasis of this statement is on how it feels.
Yes, yes.
And so let's not get too bogged down with the identity aspect of the statement, because the reality is I can also agree with that. That listen, when you are drowning in compulsive sexual acting out behaviors, it does feel like I can only be identified as a sex. That's how it feels. It feels like I'm stuck in this identity of being a sex addict.
Well, and if you've developed an addiction, you're not very emotionally aware, in touch, sophisticated. So you're going to feel lots of things, bad things and good things. And I think this guy was saying something like he was feeling bad. And I think his sponsor said, hey, that's how it feels when you do stupid things. It just feels bad. So why are you acting like you're going to have a good feeling when you've been doing a lot of dumb things? That's how it feels.
And I would even push this statement a little further. And, if let's say I were this person's sponsor, I would actually push it toward the process and say, that's how recovery feels. I mean,
that's
when
good.
you're starting to push against the things that you've just never pushed against before, it's going to feel difficult. You're going to feel bad. You're going to have hard days. You're going to feel like you're drowning, like you can't get out of that well. So that's how recovery feels. Mm-hmm. And that's the other false notion that I think a lot of people have in the addiction recovery community. The people that go into recovery is that, hey, now that I've admitted, now that I've confessed, then it's smooth sailing, right? And it's like, no, it's difficult.
There's a whole new world to discover, right?
Right.
And so one guy said, I get scared sometimes. I get lonely sometimes. I don't like the way I feel. And so his sponsor said, hey, remember, it'll pass. Mm-hmm. Just tell yourself it'll pass. You're not going to stay in this emotional state. It'll pass.
And see, I think there's a huge amount of hope in this statement because what it's saying is, we talk about the negativity a lot of times of the idea of white knuckling it. And I agree in the sense that we don't want to just be in a hang on mode for the sake of hanging on and thinking that that's actually going to produce transformation. But I think what this statement is saying is hang on a little longer. You feel like you can't resist. You feel like, and all those feelings, if you start to think of feelings as like waves in the ocean, they all eventually crash into the shore. So it's like, can you wait a little longer? It'll pass. This feeling will pass. Mm-hmm. This temptation will pass. This anxiety will pass. Just it gives hope, and it also inspires patience. Endurance is good. It's a good quality to.
Yeah, you got to go to the next thing, and you have to get to the end, and you have to know the good feelings pass and the bad feelings pass. Right?
Yeah.
We'll stay on the mountaintop and. We don't have to stay in the valley. Right?
Yeah.
So this next one was interesting because this guy was talking to his sponsor and said, I got a few things. I don't know if I should talk about them or not.
We hear that all the
time. So his sponsor says, hey, you do know your secrets will kill you. Your secrets will kill you.
I've written a book about this, actually entitled Secrets. And I absolutely agree with this statement because I do think that it's the idea of keeping things in the dark. And we know that, from the spiritual perspective, sin grows in the dark. So it can't live in the light. And so if you keep secrets, it not only will it kill you, it kills relationships. Wouldn't you agree with that? That when you begin to hide, it's not just damaging to you; it will destroy and damage relationships. Because to have a healthy relationship, it's built on trust, and trust is built on the truth, and truth is founded in the light. So it's kind of like if you keep kind of moving this thing backwards. Well, if you're keeping secrets, then you're not in the light. If you're not in the light, then you're not being fully honest with yourself and with others. And if you're not being fully honest with yourself and others, you're not encouraging trust in a relationship. And if you're not encouraging trust in a relationship, then you're going to not have a healthy relationship.
That's good. And I was just thinking I want to talk at some point about secrets, just have a whole program on secrets and living in another world, and the unknown and the power of living in a secret place.
And why it's so attractive, why it seems to be so tempting to do that.
And useful and long and deep. And there's lots of aspects to the secrets that we keep. So one gentleman said to me, I have to make this admission. And I'm going to say this, and I want you to define this last word that I say. so that we're all on the same page. And then I want you to address it, okay? This gentleman said, I am powerless over my lusts. I am powerless over the lust that rises in me.
And so you want me to define lust or
yes,
tell you what I think?
would you, so people know, what are we talking about? What does that word mean?
And I think it's good to define that because, I think of it now in our context here, I'm thinking of it in terms of our sexual lust.
Okay.
And so in that regard, lust to me is defined as the desire to take, to consume, to point toward me and my pleasure, my selfishness. So to me, that's the major directional push of lust is me, me, me. So I don't want anybody to think that sexual desire or sexual feelings is wrong because that's just part of being human. We're male and female, right? Mm-hmm. But the idea of lust is saying, I want to take those desires and I want to use you, use your image, use my fantasies of you in order to take, in order to consume. So whereas I believe sexual feelings and sexual desires were meant by God to be a gift that we give to the one person in whom we've committed our lives to in marriage, that's a beautiful thing. But lust turns that and turns it into a very ugly thing that says, no, I just want to use you. I want to use your body. I want to use your image. And I want to use that for my own.
Yeah, like a taking, right?
Yeah.
But now comment on the statement because, it's funny. I'm writing these words as you're talking. I'm thinking appetite. What is lust? Want. What is lust? Pleasure. What is lust? Will. And so then what do you think? I am powerless. If someone says I'm powerless over lust, how's that helpful?
Well, what it does is it ties in real closely with the first statement we heard, which was the disease is stronger than I am. And what it does is it just shows us our limitations. I think we've gotten so consumed in our society with this idea that we are the supreme, that we are the God, so to speak. In other words, it's creating this idea that if you dream it, it can happen. I mean, and so we've got this crazy idea that we are limitless. And I think what this is doing is saying, I'm recognizing where my power ends. And my power ends when I come face to face on my own with my lust. Guess what? It beats me up. I don't win. And even if you have those periodic moments where you say no, what this is saying is I'm realizing I need help outside of myself in order to actually overcome this thing that's within me that wants to keep consuming people's bodies and images and taking.
That's good. And if I'm powerless, then I got to go find a source of power, right? Good. The next one goes like this. At first, it fills a need, and then it becomes a practice. So whatever acting out behavior we're doing, at first it fills a need for attention, to not be lonely, to feel good, to get away from. At first it fills a need, and then it becomes a practice.
Well, and this ties in really well with what we often teach people.
I'm sorry.
With what we often teach people about the idea that there's always a legitimate need underneath what we end up doing. So that's a lot of times why this ties back into your childhood and those kind of things. Where did this begin? Why did you start isolating? Why did you start disconnecting? What were you? Because there's that sense of I'm lonely, or I want to feel, I need affection. I want to feel accepted. I want to be included. And so those needs are then
real emotional needs.
That then we're trying to fulfill them in ways that aren't healthy. But how does a 12-year-old know that that's not healthy?
Oh, that's a good point.
He's trying to grasp anything in life that can give him some sense of
comfort,
acceptance and inclusion.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
If life is painful, you're rejected. I want comfort.
And so what this is saying is that the need is good. Where I've maybe gone to try to fulfill that isn't so healthy, and then it becomes a habit or a practice. And that's what we get locked into.
And that's any addiction, right?
And then
because you could drink a glass of wine and it just makes you feel fine. But then it becomes a practice.
And I would even circle this back around and say, and then when it becomes a practice, you lose your understanding of what the original need was.
That's right.
Because you get so consumed with the practice that then you don't even know, why am I doing this?
And I'm so caught up in this gambling habit or drug or sexual, whatever it is.
Yeah.
At first it feels a need, and then it becomes a bad practice, right? Okay. So the other thing that you hear in the addiction community is the word halt. Mm-hmm. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And then we add a few extra, right? Bored and stressed. We add BS on ours. So halt, BS. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Too bored in life, too stressed in life.
And I've actually added 2 more S's.
Oh, have you? Okay.
So it also includes sad.
Okay.
And I think scared. Can be other trigger things. Because I do think sometimes fear is a trigger because we pull away. We want to feel some comfort in that fear. And so anyway, but the point here is that what we want to try to do with this idea of halt and then bored, stressed, scared, and sad is it ties back into that idea of how does this feel, and are you able to tap into your emotional struggle and the emotions that tend to set you up to be more vulnerable to the sexual acting out. So if you start realizing I have a long pattern of when I feel sad, I go into my sexual acting out behaviors. This starts to clue you into the deeper issues of what's going on rather than just going, man, I just need to stop looking at porn. How can I just stop looking at porn? And so a guy goes on a journey, he stops looking at porn, and he's still incredibly sad and continues to have the deep, deep struggle with temptation. So we want to this helps tap into kind of the deeper needs, I think, emotionally.
That's good. That they're the real needs. Go back to the beginning. What are the real needs? That you picked up this bad solution, right?
And then I think also what it does is, let's say sadness is one of those triggers. Then when you recognize that you've tied sadness into your practice of sexual acting out, and you've realized that practice of sexual acting out is not legitimately helping you deal with the sadness, you can start exploring healthier ways of actually dealing with the sadness. And so it starts to help you redirect and steer towards. So it's not just about saying, oh, good, now I know that when I'm sad, I'm likely going to be tempted to act out. No, it can be now, well, when I'm sad, what's the different thing I'm going to do? It helps you formulate a plan for, okay, where will I go? What's healthier ways to deal with sadness than going and looking at porn?
Yes, that's good, because what's a deeper need? So a guy once told me this. He said, growing up, no one liked me. And so I decided I'm not going to have any friends. I'm not going to connect to people. You don't like me? I don't like you. Mm-hmm. Right? You don't have time for me, I don't have time for you. You put up with me, I put up with you. People don't like me, so I'm not going to like them. I'm not going to connect with them. I'm not going to get close to them. Comments?
This is excuse talk. And I think it's very, very, and I'm not saying that those feelings aren't real. I'm not even saying that the statement isn't real to a point. There may actually be people that don't like this guy. But what is he doing to find new friends? What is he doing to make new? And the reason I say this is excuse talk is because this is the victim mindset that I think many addicted people get into. Is look at me, I'm broken, I'm a mess, poor me, nobody likes me. And I know this, I mean, some people might be offended by what I'm saying.
This is pretty harsh.
It might sound pretty harsh, but listen, I'm only saying the things that had to be said to me to get me to break out of the victim, selfish, self-centered mindset that addicted people get into.
But at first you can console and confront and nurture and love, but if somebody keeps this all of their lives, they never get free, right? That's your point.
Yeah, and there has to be a challenge at some point that says, okay, you're saying nobody likes you, you're saying nobody's connecting with you, so my question is, who are you seeking out? Where are you going to seek out new friends? If you think the whole world doesn't like you, have you met every person in the whole world? No. So, I mean, go to a small group, go to a support group, go to a church, start plugging in. You got to break out of the victim mindset that says, poor me, everything, the world is against me. You have to start taking those small steps toward community that you can find, hey, there are people that actually want to help and there are people that can help you.
That's good. So, the topic of fear is an interesting topic, and I really think God is showing me some things about fear. I really don't feel like I've had much, but at different times, when you move, job change, people you don't know, I guess maybe I should say, yes, I got fear like everybody else. But this guy made this statement. He said, I surrender my fear. I don't fight my fear. I don't avoid my fear. I don't act like there is no fear. I surrender my fear. I got it, and I surrender it.
And you know what? I would even say this is a great mindset for any difficult emotion you have. I surrender my anger. I surrender my sadness. I surrender my selfishness. I surrender my fear. Because what it's saying is it's recognizing that feelings in themselves are not bad. If you feel afraid, I think one of the things that when a person becomes addicted is it trains you to think that if you have any of these emotions, run as fast as you can to find relief and medicate. And what this is saying I'm going to slow down and I'm going to recognize that feeling these emotions is not what's wrong. It's how I've responded to them that has led to things that are not healthy. And so the idea of saying, I surrender my fear. If I feel it, it's okay to feel afraid. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel those emotions. Now what I'm going to do is in the slowing down, how can I redirect where I go that's different from where I used to go in responding to those emotions?
Like running, getting more fearful and all that. But if you just say, I'm not going to fight you, fear, you're there, I'm not going to fight you, I'm going to the cross to remind myself how the story ends, what's the big picture. So we have a couple of minutes. I'm going to go over 3 of them at the same time. Then I want you to play off, and we'll close with any of these. A guy said to me, well, my wife's going to be gone for a week on a business trip or some version of that, and I'm going to call a guy every day, and just one day at a time, I'm going to make this statement. I pledge to you that I will be sober for 24 hours. And that could be alcohol. It could be sexually clean for 24 hours. Just I can for one day, because when I'm alone and lonely and it's bad, an opportunity. So that's number 1. I pledge to you I'm going to be sober for 24 hours. Number 2 is there are no surprises. If you're an addict and life is hard and difficult, look, there's no surprises. This is life. It's difficult. And so don't be surprised. Everything that's happened has happened before. Somebody has some experience with it. There's no like, oh my goodness, there are no surprises in recovery or in life. And then I like this last one. Move a muscle, change a thought. If you sit right here and don't move, you're lost in your thoughts. If you get up and walk outside and move a muscle, change a thought.
Well, I love the idea of setting small goals, like I'm going to be sober for 24 hours. Because listen, and this is good for, I think, wives out there to hear, because so many times when you've uncovered the secret of what your husband's been involved in, it's perfectly normal and okay to feel that desire of I need a promise. You got to promise me this is never going to happen, and that's a huge chunk. And so if you can break it down into days like this guy's saying, I think it's great, saying I pledge for 24 hours. This is what I'm focusing on right now, the very next step I need to take. And of course the idea of I'm not surprised, I think is wonderful, because there's always there's always the idea that there's something around every corner that's coming up. And then of course move a muscle, I think that's great. Sometimes you've got to take action before the emotion follows. Well, folks, we're going to have to wrap it up there, but hopefully these comments have been helpful for you. If you've got some comments you want to make to us about your journey and want some help along the way, please contact us. And we look forward to having you back here next week on the Pure Sex Radio broadcast.
Pure Sex Radio is paid for by Be Broken Ministries. Visit us online at puresexradio.com.